Hey everybody, this is Doomhammer with another Madden franchise update. So last time I did the San Francisco 49ers quarterback history, and now I'm going to be doing the Seattle Seahawks history. I was able to get these videos out a bit quicker than I thought I would, so that's pretty cool. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the 32 teams all done very quickly, but I'll keep chipping away at it. We got a whole season I'm working my way through. But let's go ahead and get started over the Seattle Seahawks quarterback history. The first quarterback for the Seahawks was Matt Hasselbeck. Now, of course, he was the real-life starter for many years. He had some up years, he had some down years. He most successfully was 13-3 in 2003. He was 9-7 in 2004. But then they got rid of him after the 2005-2006 season when he went 1-9. So he did fairly well for them, but then had a big fall off. Now, in real life, he was with the Seahawks for much longer, till 2010, where he had 5 years less in my franchise. So when we look at his path in my fake world, he went 35-35, 500 with the Seattle Seahawks. Starting from 2001 all the way to 2005. He then went to the Detroit Lions, went 0-5. And then the rookie Brody Croyle came in as a starter and just took off. And we'll talk about Brody Croyle with the Detroit Lions when we give that update. Hasselbeck threw 1,000 yards as a Detroit Lion. And after that, that's pretty much it. He went to the Browns as a backup, and then he went to the Green Bay Packers to finish his career as the backup to Matthew Stafford, who was drafted by the Green Bay Packers. And so when we look at Hasselbeck in my franchise, almost all of his stats are with the Seattle Seahawks. However, he got like 50 here in Green Bay, 1,000 from... actually, I think I thought exactly what it was. It was 1,000 from Detroit and then 50 from Green Bay. He had most of his touchdowns, interceptions, so forth. And then when we look at his real life versus Madden, kind of a letdown. So, I mean, I always liked Matt Hasselbeck in real life, so kind of sad that he didn't really have that great of a career in my franchise. He threw more yards, more touchdowns. Yeah, he threw more interceptions, but he also had significantly more starts. My Matt Hasselbeck has a 35-40 record, where Hasselbeck in real life was 85-75 record. And then we have David Green. David Green was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals and then put in their practice squad, even though he's a third-round pick. And so the Seattle Seahawks picked him up because, of course, he was a real Seahawk in real life. He played the last 8 games of the 2005-2006 season. So that was the season when we had Hasselbeck going 1-9. I wanted to see if he could potentially be the starter for the Seahawks. Did he have any potential? And yeah, it just went from bad to worse. So he was 1-7 as a Seattle Seahawk, which, you know, of course, is not enough for you to really stay. And then you have a 4-game stint with the Washington Redskins, and he was the backup quarterback in New England because he was very cheap, and he played like that week 18 or that last week where it didn't really matter, that kind of garbage time. And then when you look at his stats in my franchise, yeah, he had most of his yards with the Seahawks because he played 8 games, only 4 with Washington and 1 with New England. And then when you see his real career, yep, nothing. In real life, he never threw a single pass. So I guess you could say I gave David Green a better career in this franchise than he did in real life. He only went 2-11 as a starter, but at least it was a time in his life where he was able to be a starting NFL quarterback. And next up, we have David Garrard coming in. He had, I think it was 4 seasons with the Jacksonville Jaguars and then came over to be the bridge quarterback here in Seattle. It was him and Tarvaris Jackson, the 2 quarterbacks that were sort of competing against each other for the starting job. As you can see, there was that one really odd play, deflection, and then Kevin Carter running in for a touchdown. And so, as we look at David Garrard here, he has a pretty decent career. He did fairly well. He had a lot more longevity than in real life. when we look at his true starting performance. Because in his first few years in Jacksonville, he was like 0-1, didn't start a game, 1-1, 4-1, 5-5. Then he started to become the starter more around 2007 through 2010. But in this franchise, he started much sooner because Mark Brunell was not playing very well, so we started David Garrard over him. And so he was 25-36 as a Jaguars quarterback, which is the only team he ever played for in his real life. In Seattle, he was 11-7-1, went 9-7-1 his first year, did not play a second year because of Jackson, and then played 2 games, was 2-0 in 2008. He did go to the Texans for a small while, and then back up in Green Bay, and the backup in Baltimore. When we look at his career, again, he had much more success in Jacksonville and other places. Seattle, he had 3 years and only 3,800 yards, 36 passing touchdowns, 19 interceptions, 494 yards, and then 4 rushing touchdowns. And then when we look at his real life to Madden, I outperformed completely. We look at 200 passing touchdowns as opposed to 89. We almost doubled his interceptions. A few shy, 3 shy of doubling. We had more rushing touchdowns, 300 more yards rushing, and then 7,000 yards, well, almost close to 8,000 yards more passing for David Garrard in this reality. But he was a decent journeyman quarterback in my franchise, not a main starter for any team for a long time, other than maybe his rookie contract with Jacksonville. And then we have Tavares Jackson. He was the 33rd overall pick, so he was the first pick in the second round going to Seattle. And of the 2006 quarterbacks, I would say it's pretty clear Tavares Jackson has been the best quarterback. Vince Young, Jay Cutler, Matt Leinart, Clemens. Jackson has kept it together. He's been a pretty solid quarterback, and he's been a journeyman, almost kind of like a Josh McCown and some of these quarterbacks that have bounced around but have been effective starters wherever they've went. He's not really the guy that I think is going to win a Super Bowl. He's not someone that's going to elevate your team to that solid performance. However, he's a competent quarterback. He's going to give you some good seasons. And so he was 25-17 in Seattle. He was there from 2006 to 2009. He was Bengals quarterback from 2010 to 2011, and then he had 11-6 record. Houston 8-3 for a 1 season, and after Houston, he went right to Tennessee and almost had an MVP type season. They were the number 1 team in the league last year for the majority of the season, and right at the very end, they sort of fell off near the end and just they became the 4th seed. But we're still a very powerful team there in Tennessee. He is their starter this season as well. When we look at his career, he has a good chunk of his experience here in Seattle, 8,300 yards, but he threw 18,000, almost 19,000 yards. So after this season, he's going to be over 19,000, definitely, probably closer to the 20 to 21,000 passing yards in his career. As you can see, almost over 150, over 100 passing touchdowns, 98 interceptions, cracked over 2,000 rushing yards, and then we see the 28 rushing touchdowns for Jackson. And when we compare him with his career, or his real career, and he way outperforms it, right? So 11,000, almost 12,000 more yards thrown, significantly more passing touchdowns and rushing yards. Just very easy, very clear that Jackson's career in this franchise is way better than his real life career. But the last year of Tavares Jackson's tenure was with Greg Schiano as head coach. After going 7-10, Schiano decides to change quarterbacks and goes with Derek Anderson. Anderson, the 6'5", 6'6" strong arm quarterback, really helped elevate the Seahawks in one season, going 9-8. Then he went 7-10. So kind of had that, picked him up for one season, but just was not able to maintain that level of solid performance. He's had some good, and of course, he's had some bad. So, like that throw right there, I thought should have been a touchdown. Then we see Ed Reed just returning it for a touchdown. Oh, man, those memories. The good with the bad. But what we see with Derek Anderson here is he was a very effective quarterback with the Denver Broncos, and I did not expect that from him. I was expecting him to fizzle out in Denver, but he actually took them to a Super Bowl. He was 30-41 in Denver. He had a 12-5 season, a 9-8. Then he had some 5-12s, 8-9, 5-7s. Seattle, he was 16-18 in 2 seasons. Then he went to be the backup in Pittsburgh. He was the backup, and then he started playing a few games for Cincinnati last year because the Bengals were that bad. Went 1-4 with them, and he is now the backup for the defending Super Bowl champion Arizona Cardinals. When we look at his career, he has 22,122 yards. This is great performance from him, from a quarterback that was taken. I think he was in my franchise. He was a 4th round pick, 30th overall. In real life, he was a 6th round pick to the Baltimore Ravens. But he threw 55 yards, 37 interceptions in his time in Seattle. He did not rush for any touchdowns in Seattle, but he rushed for 7. I think it was 6 in Denver and 1 in Cincinnati. And then when we compare that to his real life, almost 12,000 more, maybe a little bit less than that. And we see 187 passing touchdowns, 138 interceptions, a lot more touchdowns, a lot more interceptions. I rushed for more yards and more touchdowns with Derek Anderson. Having a pretty solid career, one that is a lot better than in real life. But again, for Seattle, his success was short-lived. And then the 12-13 season, 2012 to 2013, Pete Carroll becomes the head coach of the Seahawks, and he brings in the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Eli Manning, and it goes 6-11. Eli did all right. He wasn't awful, but he also wasn't great. He had some success, but not a whole lot of success. And then his second season, he was traded after 3 games, going 0-3, and he was traded to the Baltimore Ravens. So not much success there in Seattle for the quarterback. He had some good years in Kansas City. He went 68-71. He went 6-14 as a Seahawk, and then 2-9 as a Baltimore Raven. And then if you've been following this season, he is winless with the Green Bay Packers. Then he was replaced by Osweiler and then released. So Eli Manning has not had the same career as he did in real life. No Super Bowl appearances. Definitely not 2 Super Bowl championships in this Eli Manning's history, which means there's less incentive to keep him on teams. He has almost moved to the journeyman side of things where his overall is fairly high, but he's not performing at a high enough level to be worth anything. When we look at his stats, he had a very modest year and a third of a season, 3,600 yards, 32 passing touchdowns, but then 23 interceptions, too much in that span. And then you see 15 rush yards, no rushing touchdowns. But let's compare him to his real life, and he is significantly underperforming. Given Eli Manning was playing well into 2018, and he played in 2019, but only played 4 games. But he was still playing. He was only throwing 4,400 yards and 4,000 yards and 3,400 yards in his last few seasons. The fact that his career is being cut a little bit short due to the lack of, I guess, talent, the lack of ability, just goes to show that Eli Manning may not have been the best quarterback coming out in this NFL. He had some good seasons, had some mediocre seasons, but without those 2 Super Bowl wins, nothing is really keeping him anchored in any one city. And then you have Mike Glennon. He had his rookie season last year. He came in when Eli Manning was suffering a bit, and so they decided, let's give our rookie a chance to start, and he went 5-9. He has a lot more in his career to show, and we are working our way there. But he was replaced by Stafford, which we'll get to in a moment. But Glennon, he had some bright moments and he had some weaker moments. 23 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 3,100 yards. pretty decent rookie debut. However, the Seahawks are not looking for okay. They're looking for great. So as you can see, 5-9 as the starting quarterback for the Seahawks. You can see his stats there. Of course, there's nothing to compare to with any other team. He's only been on one team and one season. And then when we look at his career, he's already made a lot of progress. So in one season, he's almost halfway to his entire career. So I'm very pleased with his debut, and we look forward to seeing maybe where his career leads. But right now, it doesn't look like he's going to have many starting opportunities with the Seahawks unless there are some injuries. And their current starting quarterback is Matthew Stafford. And as you can see, he was 39-49 with the Green Bay Packers. And we will see how this season unfolds with him as a starting quarterback. We will deal with some of his stats in a later video because right now there's nothing to compare it to. And then if you wanted to take a look at who was on the team for each season at quarterback, you saw it was Hasselbeck for those first 4 years, and Trent Dilfer was a backup, JT O'Sullivan, and then Tommy Maddox was there for one season, David Green for the other. Then it was David Garrard and Tavares Jackson for multiple seasons, for 3 straight years, with Omar Jacobs and Chris Ricks, maybe like a 49 overall practice squad guy. Then Jackson had his year with no David Garrard, and Seneca Wallace was his backup with Nate Davis. We see Davis was there for a couple seasons behind Anderson and Vince Young. Now, Vince Young and Anderson were battling for that starting job, but Vince Young never had a start as a Seattle Seahawk. I did play him in read option situations, which I think was unique. I would put him in maybe for like an energy play here and there, but nothing spectacular. Then Eli Manning was with Matt Flynn and Ryan Lindley. And then the year that he was traded, it was Mike Glennon, Ryan Lindley, and then they brought in Matt Moore. And now you see Matthew Stafford being backed up by Mike Glennon with Ryan Lindley as the third option. And so there you have it. The Seattle Seahawks had 7 starting quarterbacks. Matthew Stafford is the 8th in 12 seasons. And so I'm looking forward to seeing where the Seattle Seahawks go. Matthew Stafford is one of the highest overall rated quarterbacks in the league, and he's one of the youngest. Seattle nabbing him in free agency and making that big contract, I think is going to pay off. So we'll have to see if that's true. But there hasn't really been much success in the terms of championships with the Seattle Seahawks. They have never made the Super Bowl, only made the playoffs a couple times. Yes, they had challenges with San Francisco, the Arizona Cardinals. They've been very good this entire time. And the Rams are very good early. Now they've become good once again with Andrew Luck. So thanks for watching the video. Leave a like if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel. I'll have some more weekly updates about the gameplay, but also I'll try to get more of these type videos out. So we're going to try to get through every 32 team, 12 season review of quarterbacks, and we'll see what other creative things can come up. But thanks for watching, and hope to see you on the next video.